Today's creationist to be named and shamed is his truth be known. He is guilty of quote mining, hate speech, misrepresentation of both scientific facts and his own Bible, and outright lying. There is a lot of material to cover, so I will split this edition into two parts. The first part will deal with the evidence. The second will cover some responses I have to make to his truth be known. The evidence for this is all over his comments on various YouTube videos, most notably this one. The first evidence is from his comment on YouTube in his claim that the Bible does not make any statements about the age of the earth, does not make any statements about there being a firmament, that the earth sits on pillars and is circular. These statements are in the Bible. The first offense is in this quote taken directly from the comments section on YouTube. As the late Harvard evolutionary geologist Stephen Gould put it, the extreme rarity of transitional forms in the fossil record persists as the trade secret of paleontology. The evolutionary trees that adorn our textbooks have data only at the tips and the nodes of their branches. The rest is inference, however reasonable, not the evidence of fossils. I responded to him with the quote reproduced in full from the page on the QuoteMine project that Talk Origins has hosted. This in turn references the article that Stephen Jay Gould published in his Panda's Thumb essay in 1980. The extreme rarity of transitional forms in the fossil record persists as the trade secret of paleontology. The evolutionary trees that adorn our textbooks have data only at the tips and nodes of their branches. The rest is inference, however reasonable, not the evidence of fossils. Yet Darwin was so wedded to gradualism that he wagered his entire theory on a denial of this literal record. The geological record is extremely imperfect, and this fact will, to a large extent, explain why we do not find interminable varieties connecting together all of the extinct and existing forms of life by the finest gradual steps. He who rejects these views on the nature of the geological record will rightly reject my whole theory. Darwin's argument still persists as the favoured escape of most paleontologists from the embarrassment of a record that seems to show so little of evolution directly. In exposing its cultural and methodological roots, I wish in no way to impugn the potential validity of gradualism, for all the general views have similar roots. I only wish to point out that it is never seen in the rocks. Paleontologists have paid an exorbitant price for Darwin's argument. We fancy ourselves as the only true students of life's history, yet to preserve our favoured account of evolution by natural selection, we view our data as so bad that we never see the very process we profess to study. For several years, Niles Eldridge of the American Museum of Natural History and I have been advocating a resolution to this uncomfortable paradox. We believe that Huxley was right in his warning. The modern theory of evolution does not require gradual change. In fact, the operation of Darwinian processes should yield exactly what we see in the fossil record. It is gradualism we should reject, not Darwinism. So it would seem that Gould had no problems with the fossil record. But did he believe that transitional forms are lacking? Note that in a quote originally presented, the claim is made that they are rare, not absent. Or so as anyone who is familiar with Gould's writings will know, the text quoted reflects his recognition that, while there is a scarcity of transitional fossils between species, there is no such lack of transitional fossils between major groups. Stephen Jay Gould had a website dedicated to his work. This particular page discusses punctuated equilibria in further detail. The following article discusses transitional fossils in detail. In summary, fossilization is a rare occurrence for many reasons, including but not limited to geological upheaval such as active volcanic regions, flooding, seismic events, decomposition due to atmospheric exposure and other elemental forces, and the actions of other living species at the time of any given creature's death. The requirements for a creature to be fossilized happen very rarely and require that the circumstances of the creature's death also allow for the corpse to be preserved. You certainly won't find every living creature become a fossil. Having said this, fossilization is possible because we have the fossils as evidence of this process. Fossils exist in numerous groups, and transitional forms as defined for the general lineage are abundant. His truth be known repeats the offence of quote mining several times on this page. I pointed this out to him and told him that quote mining was as dishonest as an outright lie. His response: "So you say, and have not shown to be a quote out of context. You just say so to relieve the pressure in your head." Which, as I've demonstrated here, is clearly not the case. The quote above is clearly out of context, as is this one. Richard Dawkins continues, "In any case, no real evolutionist, whether gradualist or punctuationist, uses the fossil record as evidence in favour of the theory of evolution as opposed to special creation." I looked up this quote too. The first flaw to note that this isn't a quote from Richard Dawkins, but is by Mark Ridley. The original quotation goes like this: "Someone is getting it wrong, and it isn't Darwin, it is the creationists and the media. In any case, no real evolutionist, whether gradualist or punctuationist, uses the fossil record as evidence in favour of evolution as opposed to special creation. This does not mean that the theory of evolution is unproven." So what is the evidence that species have evolved? There have traditionally been three kinds of evidence, and it is these, not the fossil evidence, that the critics should be thinking about. The three arguments are from the observed evolution of species, from biogeography, and from the hierarchical structure of taxonomy. These three are the clearest arguments for the mutability of species. Other defences of the theory of evolution could be made, not the least of which is the absence of a coherent alternative. Darwin's theory is also uniquely able to account for both the presence of design and the absence of design, vestigial organs, in nature. Now the next infraction involves misrepresentation of the theory of evolution. Attaching anything other than the change in allelic frequencies in the population over time is incorrect. Evolution was never intended to make any statements about society, morality, the origin of life, or the origin of the universe. Several times throughout the comments section, this one comes up. "Evil eye and atheist," as well as, "Evil eye and boneheaded evolution. The fact that Gould was a communist, evil eye and atheist evolutionist is unchallenged." He promptly displays ignorance of the facts, for example by making the claim that evolution has never been observed, thereby committing the outright lie fallacy for which there is no excuse, as anyone can type into a search engine these days. This is followed by the begging the question fallacy. He uses Bible verses in an attempt to underscore the truth of his position. God is real because the Bible exists, and the Bible is true because God inspired it. This is as circular an argument as the following one. Faith is reasonable because the world exists as a physical and spiritual realm. The evidence that this world is physical and spiritual is the faith that you have. And so this is our second creationist to be named and shamed. Coming up in part 2, a response to a number of claims he makes.